On today's show, it's an Ottawa Senators game day. Finally, we'll preview tonight's action against the Washington Capitals.
And Linus Ullmark looks like he's ready to get back on the roster. But when should he start his first game?
This is Brady Tkachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today is Thursday, January 30th, and we got to start the show with some very sad news. We're podcasting with very heavy hearts today. It's a sad day in Ottawa as we learned of the passing of Shawn Simpson.
Yeah, just terrible news, and it just goes to show that you have to cherish every moment you have, and it goes to show the love and support that a guy like Simmer had. Lots of people, Sens fans, people in the Ottawa community, people in the hockey industry showing their support and their condolences for the Simpson family and friends and everybody that's worked with him. And man, it's tough news for sure.
We only got to meet him the one time. He's been on the show, though, as well, and always brought a beauty vibe, right? He was just so personal, almost a larger-than-life figure. I got to, you feel like you know him listening to him on TSN 1200 all of those years, whether it was on the morning show or the drive, and just truly a larger-than-life figure. And we know he had his struggles with mental health. He was very open and honest, and his goal was to help others who are struggling as well. Only 56 years old. And at the end of today's show, we'll share some more of our memories of Shawn Simpson. And there's no easy way to transition off of this. We just felt it was a necessity to open the show saying that this is dedicated to Shawn Simpson on an Ottawa Senators game day. Look, the Senators are back in action here, taking on the Washington Capitals. Second time in 2 weeks, Billsy. They played the Capitals just 2 weeks on Thursday, exactly to the day. 2 weeks ago, it was a 1-0 overtime loss. Alex Ovechkin scores the lone goal, and Levi Merrilainen was brilliant in that game. But it looks like it'll be Anton Forsberg starting tonight's game.
Yeah, based off TSN 1200's tweets about how practice is going, Forsberg is the first goalie off the ice. He was in the starter's end, and more goalie news, though, Ross. Ullmark was also doing his kind of workouts, and he was in one of the other nets on the other end. And then it was Levi Merrilainen that was at center ice, kind of just hanging out, not really being pushed or involved. So that would go to lead us to assume that Forsberg's going to start, and possibly Linus Ullmark will be the backup. And Ross, we always say, if you're good enough to back up, you better be good enough to play. Especially this year, we've seen countless games where goalies have not been able to finish the game and the backup has had to come in, whether it's unfortunately injuries or just poor play or Travis Green trying to shake something up. If he's backing up, that's got to mean that he is game ready. Maybe they just don't want to put him in just yet.
7 o'clock puck drop tonight. We will have the postcast afterwards. The Sens are on the ice right now for morning skates. We'll have some Travis Green quotes about Linus Ullmark later on in the show. And if he's not starting tonight, should it be Saturday at home or wait until the 4-game road trip where you have a back-to-back Monday and Tuesday? That'll be a discussion later on today. We do, though, already have line combinations today, and we'll start with who's not there. Nick Jensen skated before practice. So did Noah Gregor, who's expected to be back in about a week. But Nick Jensen, the report was he was out for the weekend. Well, it's now Thursday, and he's still not back. My spin zone on this, Hamonic is playing some of the best hockey I've seen him play all year. Nick Jensen was clearly battling through something for weeks before finally being pulled out of the lineup. I think it's the better play to leave him to heal up fully and be back ready to go for that 4-game road trip, hopefully.
Yeah, I agree, Ross, especially because it had been like so many days of him maintenance days and then him not finishing games and stuff. And him and Chabot are such an important pair that rest up, hopefully come back for those couple games that we got left here before the Four Nations break. And then he gets an even longer extended period where he can fully recover. So now that Hamonic is kind of, finding his way back and him and Chabot, not as bad as I would have thought. I was a little nervous when that was the way things shook up at first, but it's been going all right.
It certainly has. Let's look up front. The top line, reunited. Tim Stützle between Brady Tkachuk and Claude Giroux. We've got Josh Norris between David Perron and Drake Batherson. Shane Pinto centering Ridley Gregg and Michael Amadio. The fourth line, Zach Ostapchuk between Matthew Highmore and Adam Gaudette. On the back end, Jake Sanderson with Artem Zub. Thomas Chabot with Travis Hamonic, and Tyler Klevin with Nicholas Matin-Palo. Anton Forsberg, we believe, will start in goal. Pilsy, what are your thoughts on reuniting Tim Stützle, not only with Brady Tkachuk, but having Claude Giroux on the other wing?
I love it, especially Ross. We talk about Tim Stützle. Unfortunately, he still needs a little help in the face-offs. Well, why not have two options? Brady Tkachuk can take draws, but preferably Claude Giroux will be the one taking the draws on that line. And you get your top players together. You get Tim Stützle and Giroux that have a lot of chemistry. They're usually a pair that's together. And I like stacking the top line, Ross, especially when we look up against the Washington Capitals. They have a similar strategy. They also stack their top line as well. So I think it's good to go head-to-head with your top guys.
Kind of interesting, though, how little they've played together this year. 2 years ago, they played almost exclusively together. Yeah. But this year, they have not played nearly as much. How many different line combinations do you think have played more minutes than Tkachuk, Stützle, and Giroux?
Oh, so many. I'm going to say 9.
6. They are the seventh most. And there's a bit of a drop-off after that. But even Stützle has played more with 2 separate combinations. One was Giroux and Batherson. The other was Giroux and Gaudette. But when he's with Tkachuk and Giroux, they have 4 goals for and only 2 against when they're on the ice in 93 minutes of action this year. Their expected goals percentage is 65.6, which is the best of any trio that the Senators have this year. So excited to see those 3 together. But Pilsy, who is your locked on player to watch?
My locked on player to watch is going to be number 12, Shane Pinto. He's now on a 2-game point streak. He had a goal, the game winner, up against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And then he had an assist in the 3-1 win up against the Utah Hockey Club. So I'm hoping, Ross, that this is what gets him going. We know we've talked before where Shane Pinto has had slumps, but then he starts to pick it up and then he gets a bit of a hot streak here. And we got to see Michael Amadio get going. He's got to provide some offense. I've liked his game defensively, but we need a little more offense from him. And then with no Nick Cousins, Ridley Gregg is going to be that third player on that third line. And I think he can provide a similar game to Nick Cousins. So for me, especially when we look at the Washington Capitals lines, Ross, I think this is a night where I expect the third line to be able to have some success.
I would hope so, because they need to get going offensively. It'll just help everybody else fall into place. Of course, Pinto has been producing on offense, but it would be nice. So I like that locked on player. I'm going to go to the back end. I'm going to go with Jake Sanderson, quietly really turning his season around. No surprise, it comes right when Artem Zub comes back and starts playing his best. Did you realize, though, that the points are starting to come in for Jake Sanderson? You know, he's only 3 assists shy of tying his career high that he's had in each of the last 2 seasons. He's up to 25 assists so far this year. He had 28 in both of his first 2 seasons in the NHL. Now, if you look at all the expected numbers, everything is just elite. However, when you look at actual goals, it's still brutal. Like, this guy is getting no puck luck. Goalie save percentages when he's on the ice are sky high, but the way he's playing, eventually the dam is going to burst and it's going to start falling for him in a big way. What better time and what better place than now against the Washington Capitals, a team that he has the second most goals against in his career? I'm going to call a Jake Sanderson goal tonight, Pilsy. In 7 games against Washington, he's got 3 goals, only more goals against the Detroit Red Wings. He's got 4 against them. He doesn't have more than 1 against any other team in the league. So let's see a goal tonight from Jake Sanderson. I bet you it's like plus 700 on FanDuel. So I'll be running over there, putting $8 on it just for fun. And defensively,
why not 8.5?
Oh, twist my arm. I'll do it. But hey, with him and Zub, we talked about it earlier this week. When they're on the ice, it's the fewest expected goals against of any D pair that's played 300 minutes in the league per 60 minutes, of course. By the way, that's statistic, so it evens out for everybody. My goodness, would it be huge for them to shut down Ovechkin's line tonight? they are humming. They have been all year. We'll get to Washington in the next segment, but the team did a great job last time. Of course, Maryland was a big part of it, but it took until overtime and a turnover on a 2-on-1 bouncing puck for Ovechkin to get it in. But I'm expecting a big game, and they're going to need a big game from both Sanderson and Zub if they're going to shut down this potent Capitals offense.
Yeah, I think that's a good call, Ross. And yeah, we looked last week at, what was it, a 19-game sample size, and looking at the point leaders because the top offensive guys were in slumps, and it was Pinto and Sanderson that were leading the way points-wise. So that's great that Sandy's kind of quietly picking up these points, and he's going to have to be top-notch defensively up against this Washington Capitals team that we'll look at the lines, but I am still baffled, Ross, at how amazing this team is doing.
Jake Sanderson with an assist in each of the last 2 games. A point tonight would extend that to tie a season-high 3-game point streak. The game starts tonight at 7 o'clock in Ottawa. We got tickets available on the GLEBE Central Pub shuttle, so make sure you check that out. I've also got a call with Blair, the owner of the GLEBE Central Pub, later today. We are mapping out our next visit to Ottawa, so stay tuned for more details on that. On the other side, the Washington Capitals, the team in the NHL this year. Them in the East, Winnipeg in the West are really separating themselves from everybody else. So why? What's made Washington elite? We'll have that conversation, look at their lines, and map out when Linus Ullmark should return. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Guys, attending NFL playoff games is an unforgettable experience that brings fans together. And there's only one NFL playoff game left. It's the Super Bowl. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. And it's not just sports, music, comedy, and theater as well. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you're not wasting time searching through thousands of tickets that you don't even want. I use Game Time Picks to get my tickets for the Ottawa Senators up against the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I was stoked that I found a great deal, and I could see my view from my seat before I bought the ticket, so I knew I was going to like what I see when I sit down, and I hate getting surprise fees at checkouts, so I turned on the all-in pricing feature, so I knew the price right up front. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed.
All right, Pilsy, it is the Ottawa Senators taking on the Washington Capitals tonight at 7 o'clock. The two teams have already met once this season. It was a 1-0 overtime loss for the Ottawa Senators, and they will meet once again on March 3rd, right before the March 7th NHL trade deadline. But Washington made a lot of their moves last summer that has really revamped, redone their team. A full-on makeover, if you will. And it all starts between the pipes with Logan Thompson. 11-0-1 in his last 12 games. Pilsy, he's been putting up nearly Hamburglar numbers this season. 23 wins, 2 losses in regulation, and 3 overtime losses. This guy's been incredible.
Yeah, he's been so amazing. And Ross, little funny story. Remember we were at the draft in Vegas? He was a member of the Vegas Golden Knights, and he was signing, I think, his rookie card, or he was doing some sort of hockey card signing. And it was at that moment that he got traded. So I remember people were going up to him being like, hey, you just got traded, right? And he's like, well, these cards, me as a Vegas Golden Knight, like, hold on to them because that's going to be it. I'm going to Washington. So that was a bit of a funny moment, especially being in Vegas and being traded away from Vegas.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just shows how cutthroat the Vegas Golden Knights are, but it worked out real well for not only the team, but him. The team gets him at a $766,000 cap hit this year, but he did just sign an extension the other day, $5.85 million on a contract that will last 6 seasons and bring him to age 34. So the start of this year earned Logan Thompson a $35 million contract, and it's still ridiculous this guy didn't make Team Canada for the Four Nations.
Yeah, I mean,
who's running the team? The World Junior team management?
Yeah, no kidding. Come on.
What's going on here? But hey, he's one of many great stories for the Washington Capitals. If you look at their team stat chart, like Dylan Strome was just given away by the Chicago Blackhawks. They're like, we're good. We don't need him. He's got 47 points in 50 games this year. Leads the team. They don't have a single point per game player. Of course, Alex Ovechkin missed a bunch of time, so he is exactly a point per game, but only 34 points, 34 games. Bills, you know what the good news is tonight for Ottawa?
Give me some good news. Alex
Ovechkin will not pass Wayne Gretzky tonight for the all-time NHL's goals list. He needs 20 to do so.
Oh, man, if he scored 20 tonight, Ross, you would look so foolish. That's good. I thought you were going to say breaking news. He's like day to day with an illness or something. Or man, you got me excited there. But yes, that is good. And hopefully he doesn't start a scoring pace that would see him get close to that by March 3rd.
I know, because he did score his 500th career goal against the Ottawa Senators. He's dominated the Sens over his career, but how many franchises could say that? Many of them. I actually just opened it, and there's 2 teams in particular that can say that. Do you know that against the Winnipeg Jets, which was really the Atlanta Thrashers when he was in his absolute prime and in the division with Atlanta?
Right.
You know that Ovechkin against that franchise in 73 games has 55 goals?
Oh, man. Wow.
And 100 points in 77 career games. This guy, he's dominant. Against the Ottawa Senators, 58 games, 37 goals, 61 points, plus 16. That plus 16 is better than he is against any other team in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, there's too many players, Ross, where that is the case. They feast on the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah, well, hey, hopefully it's like Matthews, where Austin Matthews, his numbers against Ottawa are great, but he only had 1 goal in his last 10 games. Unfortunately, Alex Ovechkin has 1 goal in his last 1 second against the Ottawa Senators, as he had a walk-off goal to win the game 2 weeks ago. But the Washington Capitals, we just talked about 2/3 of their top line. Dylan Strome is centering Alex Ovechkin and Tom Wilson. Pierre-Luc Dubois, another reclamation project for them. That's another, both, and I'll get back to their lines, but both of their trades, their 1-for-1 trades this summer, where they took on a bit of risk, it worked out for both teams. Look at the Chychrun trade, worked out well for Ottawa. They get Nick Jensen. Darcy Kemper looks unbelievable for the LA Kings after struggling with the Washington Capitals. So Dubois is centering the second line between Alexei Protas and Connor McMichael. The third line is Lars Eller between Taylor Radish and Ethan Frank. And then Nick Dowd is the fourth line center between Brandon Duhaime and Andrew Mangiapane. On the back end, Rasmus Sandin with John Carlson. The second pair, Jacob Chychrun with Trevor Van Riemsdyk. And Martin Fehervary is with Matt Roy on the bottom pair. We expect Logan Thompson to start in goal. Charlie Lindgren is back, meaning that the Happy Gilmore caddy, Hunter Shepard, has been sent back down to Hershey, where, by the way, Hershey lost 9-0 last night to Wilkes-Barre Scranton. About the Washington Capitals, though, look, Ottawa's had a tough schedule. This is the last game of a 5-game road trip for Washington that went from Edmonton to Seattle to Vancouver to Calgary and now to Ottawa. So maybe a little bit of fatigue with a lot of travel. Maybe they're thinking about going home after this game. That's my hope, because this is a very good hockey club, and Ottawa's going to need to bring everything they have to get 2 points tonight. Who's your lookout player to watch?
Well, Ross, first, let's give this a try. We, as the Locked On Senators podcast, would like to guarantee 100% without any fail that Logan Thompson will be the starter tonight. We've never gotten starting goalies wrong on this show, so for sure he is going to be the starter. I think we can say that confidently.
Yes, we can.
Okay, hopefully no jinx happens there. My lookout player is going to be number 21, Alexei Protas. This guy, Alexei Protas, number 21. This guy, this is his coming out party this season, Ross. He was drafted in the 3rd round, 91st overall in 2019 by the Washington Capitals. Last season was his first real full season in the NHL. 78 games, 6 goals, 23 assists for 29 points. Not bad, like decent for a young guy. He's only 24 years old. But this year, oh my God, he's figured it out. 50 games, 21 goals, 21 assists, 42 points. And Ross, he is second on the team in goals this season with 21, only behind Alex Ovechkin. Mind you, he's played 16 more games, but greatest goal scorer of all time. That's not bad. He's a plus 29 on the year. And Ross, with 21 goals, how many power play goals do you think he has?
Oh, I'm going to say not many because of the way you're saying that. Maybe 2?
0.
What?
Not a single power play goal for Protas. Ross, to take it even further, he's not even on any power play unit. According to Daily Faceoff, he is not on the first or second power play units for this team, which is crazy that a guy that scored 21 goals is not getting any man advantage time. So all of those goals are at even strength. I don't think he even has any shorthanded goals either. No, or sorry, 1 shorthanded goal. So he has more shorthanded goals than power play goals, sitting at 21 goals this year. So that's a guy on the second line that I'm going to be looking out for sure.
He's also a mutant. He's an enormous human being.
Huge.
Alexei Protas is 6'6", 225 pounds, and they got another one coming, Pilsy. They drafted his brother in the 3rd round this past year, 6'5", 201. So
Woo.
He's got 74 points in 41 games in the OHL this year, too.
Wow.
So they just went to Belarus and said, give us your biggest and best athletes. And Alexei Protas is certainly making his mark at the NHL. I remember 2 weeks ago during the game, Jamie McLennan between the benches, Noodles was like, you can just see how big this team is up close. Like Taylor Radish is a huge human being. Pierre-Luc Dubois, obviously Alex Ovechkin. They've got size on there. Andrew Mangiapane, just kidding. Not everybody's going to be enormous on the team, but they've got good puck movers on the back end. Rasmus Sandin, John Carlson in particular, can really move the puck. They've got good defensive-minded players like Trevor Van Riemsdyk, Matt Roy. And I think the real cherry on top for Washington is they've got the best coach in the National Hockey League. Spencer Carberry is just doing a phenomenal job. And maybe he's...
Best coach?
Yeah, oh yeah. He's winning the Jack Adams this year. There's no question in my mind.
Yeah, I think he'll win the Jack Adams, but damn, that I feel like that's a hot take. Best coach in the league.
Well, maybe it's the pandering because he does always compliment the Ottawa Senators. Go check out his pregame availability. I'm sure he'll say more of the same, but he just feels honest. He's young, he's innovative, he's all these things, but he's got a command of the room. The Capitals, and I mean, they post them after every win, so they've been basically posting them after every single game this year. But he does like the dressing room thing, kind of like what the Sens do. And he is just he's a leader of men, and you could tell that with the way that he handles his troops. And I got a lot of respect for Spencer Carberry, a guy who was on the Leafs bench, but they couldn't keep. Interesting. He was assistant coach for them, but took on his own squad in Washington, and you can tell he's doing a great job there. The Washington Capitals, are they number 1 in the NHL right now? It keeps flip-flopping between them and Winnipeg. But
no, I don't. They're tied with Winnipeg.
Tied with Winnipeg for the number 1 team, and nobody else even close. Nobody else is even at 70 points yet, and both Winnipeg and Washington are at 73.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple teams in the high 60s, but yeah, definitely those two teams
67. They have a 5-point lead on the entire NHL, Winnipeg and Washington.
Crazy.
I mean, W's are in their name.
Yeah, Winnipeg and Washington. Yeah, good call. So your lookout player is Spencer Carberry?
No, it should be, but you know what? I already gave the Ovechkin fact, so I'll leave him off, but I'll go with Rasmus Sandin because I feel like he's someone that people don't really like respect maybe as much. And maybe it's just because he played for the Leafs, but he's such a good player. He was the one who passed the puck to Ovechkin on that goal, and a real shame the Leafs let him go, hey?
Yeah, imagine letting Carberry, Sandin, and DJ Smith go.
Oops. But no, he's a heck of a player, and he munches minutes for them as well. A little undersized after I go off about how big a lot of their team is, but he's one of their young puck movers. So my real lookout player is Alex Ovechkin, but I already rattled off his stats earlier. So I'll go with Rasmus Sandin as a guy to watch tonight. And I mean, how random is it? The schedule allows Jacob Chikrin to come back to Ottawa twice in 2 weeks. So we already covered that storyline. Give him a little, actually, just ignore him at this point. You gave him a little polite welcome back when he had the video tribute. It's another game.
We don't even think about you anymore, Chikrin.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he doesn't think about us either. So all good there, the Senators and the Capitals tonight. That is our game day preview. We're waiting for quotes from Travis Green. We'll get to those next. When should Linus Ullmark be back in front of the cage for the Ottawa Senators? We've got information on that. It's next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day. All right, Pillsy, I'm so fired up for this game tonight. The Ottawa Senators been off since Sunday. People forget the Senators are coming off back-to-back wins over the weekend. 2-1 over Toronto, 3-1 over the Utah Hockey Club. I mean, they've just been buzzing at home. How many? They've won 3 straight at home. The OT loss against Washington, fine. But then you go back to the weekend before, they beat the Stars. Ever since that real disappointing loss to the Buffalo Sabres in Ottawa, they're 4-0-1 on home ice.
Yeah, they're finding ways to get it done. And we talked about it after the weekend, Ross. The top players, Tim Stützle, Claude Giroux, Brady Tkachuk, they chipped in. Jake Sanderson as well. The goaltending's been good. They've been playing a solid defensive game. And, Ross, they've been disciplined as well. We talked about how little penalties they've been taking as well. So that's huge. And just, we didn't really touch on it, so I'll just get into it briefly. What's made Washington elite? Well, we talked about all the players having big seasons, but a big one is their penalty kill. They're second in the league in penalty kill percentage, and they're second, I guess, also, because the top 2 teams in power play goals allowed are Carolina and Dallas with 21, whereas the Capitals have only allowed 23 power play goals. The Ottawa Senators have allowed 30. And then you go to just their percentage on the PK, and they're 84.7% on the penalty kill. So this is a team that you kind of think is mostly offensive just because you think Alex Ovechkin, but hat tip to their head coach. He's found ways to tighten things up defensively as well.
Yeah,
and I mean, good goaltending helps too.
It does mask some issues there. Yeah, Sens are 9-2-1 in their last 12 home games ever since that debacle of a homestand with Vancouver, Vegas, and Edmonton coming into town. But Pillsy, the Washington Capitals, if I could speak English, they have struggled a little bit on the power play recently. 2 for 16 in their last 7 games. But their PK is 16 for 17.
Yeah.
So they're both even. And funny enough, both of the goals, or I should say, they've got 1 extra power play goal against Pittsburgh in a 4-1 win. But they allowed a power play goal and scored a power play goal in their last game in a 3-1 win against Calgary. So I'm banking on this to be a tightly contested game. It's going to be one where structure reigns supreme, and you hope that one of the Senators' top players pops off, because Brady broke the schneid, got back in the scoring column in the final goal against Utah. Would love to see him continue to assert himself in tonight's game.
Yeah, I think, Ross, I thought about going for Drake Batherson as my locked-on player, but I don't think this is going to be a game where the offense is going to pop. I think you're going to have to rely on playing a sound defensive game as well. And I'm thinking this is going to be another 1-goal game and like maybe a 2-1 win for the Ottawa Senators, hopefully. But this is not a game where I expect either team to pop off offensive-wise.
We've got an update from Travis Green. Linus Ullmark will not back up in tonight's game. So,
okay.
Kind of what we were saying, though, Pillsy. If you're not ready to back up, you're not ready to play. So Levi Marilainen will back up Anton Forsberg tonight, leaving us wondering, is it Saturday? Is it Monday? Is it Tuesday in Tampa? When would you look to get Linus Ullmark going? Because he's close. There's no way he's not close.
Certainly.
He's been practicing. today feels like that full practice. Let's go. When would you hope that he's back?
First off, Ross, I got to assume that the Sens, their medical staff, are taking all the precautions, which everybody knows I'm a fan of. So I'll say, obviously, I'm disappointed that he's not backing up, because that would be the next step here. But I'm glad they're taking it easy and not pushing it. Looking at the schedule, if he's not even backing up yet, Ross, I'm going to say Saturday starting is doubtful. Selfishly, I'm hoping he gets the start in Tampa on the 4th. I'm going to be boots on the ground in that game. I'll wear my Linus Ullmark road jersey for that. So that would work out great for me. And I think if you're going to start him on a back-to-back, maybe I was going to say the second half of a back-to-back, it might be better, but you're going to have tired teammates in front of you. So depends how you want to spin zone it. I'll say it's better, Ross, because he's going to get probably a little bit more action. He's going to have to be a little bit more sharp, and that's an extra day rest. And you want your top goalie going up against the Eastern teams, more specifically your Atlantic Division rivals in the Tampa Bay Lightning. So I'm going to put in pencil, not in pen or permanent or chisel and stone, but in pencil, I got Linus Ullmark starting that second game of the back-to-back. And for sure, Ross, he has to start at least one game for the Sens going into the Four Nations if he's going to play in that tournament.
Has to. I think he has to start 2, but that's just like the Tuesday in Tampa and then Saturday in Florida, that sort of thing. And look, Levi Marilainen was so good against Minnesota in Mini earlier, I guess, at the end of 2024. Like, you could give him that game and be pretty confident going into it, although the Minnesota Wild are unbelievable on the road, but we'll preview that more on tomorrow's episode heading into the weekend. But look, this is the cushion that the Sens have given themselves with their elite goaltending over the course of while Ullmark is back. Think about we would be in full panic mode if Ullmark was skating but not playing, and if we're getting consistent 880 save percentages every night. But the way both Forsberg and Marilainen have played have bought the organization, bought Ullmark a lot of leeway of take your time, come back when you're 100%. But I also do think in the back of a lot of Sens fans' heads, it's like, hey, you're breaking in your Team Sweden pants, but you're not playing for us yet. What's going on? We need to get him back before the Four Nations break, which starts on February 9th after the Senators take on the Florida Panthers. Pilsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
Usually I like to touch on Blake Montgomery or the Belleville Senators. I'll go with the Belleville Senators here, Ross. They had a big win last night up against the Hartford Wolfpack, a 6-5 overtime win. And guess who the hero was? He was just cleared through waivers. Cole Reinhardt gets the overtime winner, a huge goal and a massive win for the Belleville Senators, as they are still 6th place in the North Division, but with 5 games in hand on the Syracuse Crunch, they're 6 points back. So there's still a chance that they can cover up that ground with those games played. And the Belleville Senators AHL All-Star, Jeremy Davies, have a game, 4 assists for him in that one. So a huge game for the Belleville Senators.
Huge. And all of our boys came through. Stephen Halliday with a goal, Angus Crookshank with a goal, and Oscar Pedersen, pew pew, gets one as well. So a nice bounce back. And look, we say that Ottawa's bought a lot of leeway with Linus Ullmark, taking his time coming back, and rightfully so. They can't buy a save in Belleville right now, buddy. No. They cannot. So to outscore their problems last night, win 6-5 in overtime, that's a great sign. We'll focus more on Belleville during the Four Nations tournament as well. Some unfortunate news. Carter Tkachuk left last night's game with a lower body injury, according to our good friend Julian McKenzie. So still waiting for more of an update on that. Very, very unfortunate. He did not put any weight, trying not to put any weight on his injured leg.
Oh, boy.
Left the game in the third period. So we will be waiting patiently, anxiously, maybe more so, on what's next for Carter Tkachuk. He had 7 PIMs. I guess got in a tilt last night. 1 assist and 3 shots on goal before leaving in the third period. And Calgary's been buzzing of late too. So it's unfortunate that he can't be in the mix there. All right, we talked about it at the start of the show, and it's only right that we spend a little time here discussing the legacy and the life of Shawn Simpson, who, I mean, devastatingly passed away yesterday. I mean, I just think of that larger than life figure. And hey, every was kind of one of his catchphrases, if you will, while he was talking. And every time you listen to him, you just felt good about yourself. You know what I mean? He always made sure to pass on those good vibes, those beauty vibes, as he would say. And it truly, the outpouring of support at a time like this, it's never something you want to see. Obviously, we wish and truly, I mean, it's such a regret that he was not able to get the help that he needed while he was still with us. But to see the outpouring of support, Pilsy, it truly shows that he touched so many people with his, ability to communicate and to always have a positive angle to any story he was talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. He was such a interesting, hilarious guy. And I didn't grow up in the Ottawa area, so I wasn't one of the many people that spent hours and days listening to him on TSN 1200. So for me, I really got to know him kind of through Twitter. And when we had him on our show, just the one time, unfortunately, I wish we could have had more opportunities to get him on the show. But I just remember being so excited because we were finally getting the opportunity to have him on, and just his smile was just huge. He was so excited to talk about us. And it was just one of those where I didn't even really want to ask any questions, Ross, because it cut out his airtime. I just wanted him to just be like, okay, here's another topic. You just go off on that and we'll just smile and listen along. And just the kind of, the bits he had on Twitter, like the classic, it's a beautiful sunrise here in Canada, and then it's like a beach in Fiji. and the all-time bit, though, was him, and it has fooled quite a bit of people, him talking about fast ice and importing water from Switzerland and things like that. Like, just so many classic things that would just crack you up. And he was a guy that really made a lot of people smile, and he loved the Sens, and he loved getting his opinions out there. And yeah, we're just gutted when an entire community, Sens fans, people living in Ottawa, obviously his family and friends, loses such a fun, loving person like Simmer was.
Yeah, I got to see him once. I think it was like 2012. I was working at Navarre in the market, and it was an open kitchen, and he came in with a lady and sat at the bar. And it was one of those where you text your buddy, you're like, Shawn Simpson's at my bar. Like, can you believe it? Like, truly a local legend, and he will be missed by many. And we're thinking about him, his family, and everyone who knew him at this time. Ian Mendez, of course, his former co-host with The Drive, put out a very touching tribute on his Twitter account, so you can go read that in its entirety there. And he's going to be missed. There's no doubt about that. So we're going to be thinking of you, Simmer, and I hope that you're happy. I hope that you're feeling better. And I mean, he'll be smiling down watching his former team, the Washington Capitals, take on his hometown team, the Ottawa Senators, tonight. So we're dedicating not only this show, but I feel like the season, if not more, like his legacy is going to live on in Ottawa forever, because he was that kind of guy and always wanted to do good by the community, by people. And I mean, just even giving us advice, things like that. He doesn't have to go out of his way. And we're seeing a lot of likewise stories just like that all over social media today. So we're thinking about you, Simmer. We miss you. We love you. And the Sens community will never be the same without you. We'll leave it at that for today. We miss you, Simmer. Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of Locked On Senators. We're your team every day.